wake up to the same old fight, chasing shadows in the night. Promises made, but I let them fade. Caught in the cycle, I'm feeling betrayed. Round and round, I'm losing ground. Trying to break free, but I can't see. These negative patterns are haunting me. Nights turn to days, I'm losing my way. Thought I found peace, but it's led me astray. Chasing the high, but it only brings pain. The more I run, the less I gain.
Hey everybody, hey! You are here again for another session of Tarka Say It Again. And today we have a guest by the name of Justin Brathwaite, who's an attorney. Yes, an attorney. He's in the office.
Hey everybody. Like you said, my name is Justin Brathwaite. I specialize in trademark, wills and estate, as well as business law in the state of Indiana, but I also practice trademark nationally and help whoever I can.
Yes, so he will be talking to us today, giving some specifics on trust and wills, correct?
Absolutely.
And we know when we talk about wills, it's basically we have those set up in the event something happens, right? We want to know like who's responsible for the children, if you have any underage children, maybe what happens to your assets, right? Who do they go to? Where do they go? Because we don't want the state taking them, right?
Exactly. That's the main reason. That was actually the state, and necessarily the state won't take them. Most states, there are laws where there are the children of the decedent, which is the person that has passed away. The decedent, 9 out of 10 will get those, depending on what state, but 9 out of 10, the children will receive it. If there's no children, the spouse might receive it. If there's no spouse, then maybe if the decedent had siblings, the brothers, sisters of that decedent, they might get it, and there's usually levels to it. 9 out of 10, there is that person there, the child or spouse, but there are so many levels of who can go to, but again, they're usually there. Wills, they try to exactly prevent the state from really being involved. If you're a person with a lot of assets, it's best to have a will in actuality, because you don't want, if you have particular people you want to receive those assets, it could be financial, it could be a car, it could even be, you guys put animals on wills if you want.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you do a lot of things with wills.
Okay.
Just depends on the state you're in. Some states are a little more particular and strict with their wills. For the most part, you do have a good amount of flexibility. But again, with the will, you are subject to the state versus a trust. But we get into that a little bit later. But yes.
Okay. And just in thinking about it, because you mentioned about the scale, 9 out of 10, but I was going to ask you, like, if you had to choose, say, 1 to 10, what would you rate it as far as the importance of having a will? Because we've heard and we've seen, various family members that have gotten into it, whether it was their own family or they've heard about it or witnessed it on TV. You get what I'm saying? Of how when someone dies, how the family can turn on you.
Right. So yeah, wills are important for that reason. Families turn on each other. There's several movies out there actually even depict this, where families go are arguing with each other because the person that passed away has a lot of financial assets and they want to get it, or there was maybe some foul play between the siblings and the decedent. So it's on the scale, I'll say it's important because really 9 out of 10. I mean, I like to give wiggle room because nothing's perfect, but it's very important when you do have a big family and you do have a lot of assets to make sure you can delineate who gets those assets. Because if you let it free for all, or even a will that's just a poor will that's not written correctly, of course, have a great attorney, or you try to do it yourself, but a great attorney hopefully can kind of delineate exactly what's in the will and who goes what. That's very important because the next big thing in the will is descriptions of who receives it. If you have family members with several names, similar names, like the Joel Smith or Johnson, everybody has the same similar names. Or I got some juniors, some second, thirds within the family. Right. Then you have to make sure who is going to, and there's some discrepancy. Then some states might throw away the whole will or throw away that provision and say hey, we're gonna go by what the state says.
Okay.
So it's just important that you want to avoid those type of issues. I don't know, families also contesting. As far as contesting, most states do have a contesting law. They try to prevent people from actually putting contesting clauses in the will, because then it will deter families from contesting. So that's a little bit more into it, where you might need a state wills and estate planning attorney kind of break down the contesting clause in a will, because some states do differ, and you gotta make sure if you put a contesting clause, what your state says.
Okay. Making sure it's aligned with
Right.
your state.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And that was just one thing, because I know I heard you mention how that nothing is perfect, right? But we definitely know those wills are needed to kind of minimize some of the confusion that comes about.
Right. And some confusion also comes with the assets themselves. If you have cars, similar cars, and just make sure you just describe it correctly. VIN numbers,
being specific.
Being specific as possible, and that's the main thing. And law in general, in practicing, you just gotta make sure you be as specific as possible, because you don't want any room for interpretation, because that's usually when the attorneys come in.
Gotcha.
Interpretation, and then the judges interpret what we think and what was said by the person or decedent. So you really want to leave little room, and it's just more cut and dry on the paper. It says going to who, what account goes to who, how much money goes to who, and whatnot. Because it leaves us, or leave to a judge, it may not be interpreted the same way as the decedent wanted it.
Okay. And I was going to say also, because that leaves room as far as why they should hire someone like yourself as an attorney to put the specifics in there, versus, because of course they have it online where you can start your will and, write up your trust or whatever the case is. But I would think because that's your profession, and you walking them through it or doing it for them, then you don't have to worry about the wavering or the errors or whatever the case, versus them doing it themselves.
Right. Yes, it's very important to get an attorney for it. There's online services out there, but I would suggest someone in person, especially when it comes to an attorney. They can kind of talk you through it. They might talk you, you may not need it. Well, most people do, but if there's some reason why you're trying to give someone's maybe like a house to all your kids, depending on the state, that might already be happening. It's up to you to really decide, up to the attorney to help, to make sure that what you need is what you need. Some people may need a will and a trust. Some people may need a pour over trust into their will. So that gets to more to how many assets you have, and a lot of online services do not ask those questions, or they don't check, or aren't personable that you know you enough to make sure you're getting the right service.
Okay, so that's dealing with your will. So in thinking about trust, because we mentioned that a little bit, we know that's also set up for your loved ones, right? But we find that it helps when it comes to keeping them out of, I guess, probate.
Yeah, so both. Will's more for probate court. Trusts are more anytime. Literally, we could sit here and do a trust, and once that trust is completed, technically those assets are within that trust. There's a revocable trust and irrevocable trust.
I've heard that.
Yes.
Irrevocable and revocable.
It's in the titles. Ones you can revoke, when you can't. When it's done, it's done. And when it's revocable, you can revoke. And it just depends what type of trust. There are millions of types of trusts out there. Those are two more important and more commonly practiced. But there's a special needs trust. There's some with life insurance. There's different types of trusts out there. And it's kind of based on the assets you're also using to fulfill that trust, because some trusts can be used to have a business within to fulfill that trust with the assets. Some trusts can use different things. So trusts are just important depending on your financial situation. Most people who do get trusts tend to have at least 100,000 of financial capital.
Okay.
If you really have less than that, your trust might be exhausted, which just means all the money spent within years or two. So it really doesn't make sense, ideally, if you don't have that much money in a trust.
Got you.
Just really, a lot of times we hear it's a rich man's type of tool. You can use it in the way you plan to, if you have $100,000 in assets, that could be your house. It could be multiple things. It doesn't have to be exactly
All
liquid cash.
And the business can go in there as well.
Right. Exactly. Businesses, because some people just different tools. Trust is very much it's very important. Use attorney to do a trust because trust take a lot of different directions, and a lot of states have a lot of laws over trust. And you want to make sure just that you're doing it correctly.
Yes, because I hear that it's more expensive. Is that a annual fee or that's a monthly fee that you would pay to keep your trust going? Like how does that work?
Depends how you set it up. Again, trust can be a little bit more flexible in that realm. You can have someone that holds over the trust, basically that manages the trust, and that person is paid, and you choose how to pay them. Ideally, monthly, since most people are used to getting paid monthly or biweekly. So you can choose how to do your deal with your trust. But again, it's up to you. It's flexible.
Okay. Yeah, just wondering, because I know I've been doing some research, and like you said, it's more so for business owners. Like they basically take advantage of that when they have multiple businesses going on.
There's multiple ways. Lawyers, some business owners who may have different reasons to put their business in a trust where it can't be touched for other
legal purposes.
Right? So they might protect in the trust, or might vice versa. It's just things that it's a legal tool. It's most important, a legal tool. I want to kind of cover your assets and also figure a way to distribute your assets.
And it for me, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like then you don't have to worry about the outside chaos or going to probate court because everything is already decided and grouped together.
Right. Yeah. You can. And just again, always better have an attorney for something like that if you do want to kind of protect assets and prevent probate. People can use the trust and the will simultaneously.
Okay.
And called pour over trust, where you have the trust, but there's assets within the trust that go to the will. Let's say there's that person who was over the trust. There's assets that it belongs to that person may pass away and it'll go to the will, and just different ways to use it, protect it from probate, protect your assets from probate. But yeah, trust can be used in so many ways, honestly, and they're very helpful. Just having assets to fund that trust.
Yeah, and I'm hearing it's different types as well, like you said. You've given us some background information on trust. So going back to the wills, can you touch a little bit on those living wills?
Yeah, so living wills, almost what it sounds like.
Okay.
So think of it this way: if a person is not passed away, but they are in a vegetable state, then they can't make decisions for themselves. There is a living will, which basically states who should take over what. If someone's passed away and they have multiple accounts, maybe business, or different types of assets that someone needs to take control of, that needs a thinking head, a person over it, a living will can decide. It just names that person. And it's very important. You never know who's sick, who gets sick and whatnot. Or car accidents. You never know. So living will is so important. Just if you have those assets and if you're the not manager, but we'll say you're the decision maker, and for something like a business, a CEO. Well, you might need living will to conduct that business for someone. Let's say most businesses do have someone second in charge. If there's not, then maybe that living will might have to put someone else in charge and make those decisions. What assets get what, right? Basically, just also medical. It's also called the medical.
So the medical, that would be in the living will.
Yeah, medical surrogate. It's kind of like America's medical surrogate form.
The caretaker.
Yeah, basically. Okay. Yeah, those are very important. First time to a will, just kind of gets you before the will. Most attorneys do offer estate planning packets, and they will include those living wills with a will. So there's not much of a big difference as far as when you are going to an attorney and you looking to make a will. A good attorney will say, there's a living will and whatnot. So then we'll make sure just to have everything covered. Let's say that's something that's happening. And then kind of the friend or kin to living will is a power of attorney. I'm sure we've heard of it. If not, it's what it sounds like. You're giving someone a power of attorney, and then they don't have to be an attorney. It's just a name. But basically, it's saying it's kind of similar to living will, but it's more if there's more situational than living will. So there could be that person's out of the country. This person has a power of attorney. This person can say yes or no to about these certain things. So power of attorney usually lists out what it can do. So if it's financial assets, if it's accounts, bank accounts, they'll say basically this person has the power to decide and supervise these financial accounts, and then they can use it. They will show, ideally, the situation is you show the power of attorney, I have power of attorney, and I can say, I can do this so and so because I have power of attorney. And it's usually like that. So those are important. Just, you never know, again, what happens.
Right.
Things happen in life.
Exactly. So, there's no financial gain in the living will, correct?
Correct.
It's just the decision making, like you said, power of attorney.
Correct.
So with that, like what would be the time frame? Like obviously it has to be done before the person goes into the vegetable state, correct?
Right.
Are there any instances where someone that might have been their caregiver have created this living will or made those decisions, to have someone act on their behalf while they were, because just think about it, like obviously you said we have to be prepared, right? It seems like we gotta just double, triple be prepared. Right. You know what I mean? Because you never know when something may occur. But like who thinks about that? You know what I mean? Like we know you should have a will in place, right? But you say a living will before the actual death. And I'm saying this because last week we just had a mortician. He was in the office and he talked about the difference between being prepared and unprepared, what that would look like for a family, and they have pre-needs and different things that people go and have set up when it comes to covering for the funeral expenses. And then the week before that, we had life insurance in, and him talking about what that looked like of being prepared and not, and having insurance in place that would cover in the event the demise of a person. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh my gosh, like the checklist is getting longer. You know what I'm saying? Now you telling me a will before the will.
Yes, the checklist does get long. There's a lot of things to have, and really, it's hard, but it is important to have all these things, life insurance and whatnot, because really, honestly, you can put all what you just said into life insurance and then as wills, and you can put the funds, life insurance, you should have beneficiaries, but there's just different things you can do with life insurance. And same thing with wills and trusts. So it's just important to have it. I would say they're on the top because life insurance comes with beneficiaries. It's also important to have the wills and trusts for the things that are not life insurance, but basically everything else. So that's your financial accounts, your cars, even there's different things you can, like you said, your pets. You can do different things with maybe something that's more closer to the soul, something that you can't really put a price on, but it's something that's very dear to your heart. Put that in will. So yeah, the checklist can be as long as ever. It's best to do it. You can start a lot of things younger. When you really feel like you have enough assets to put in the will, I say start it. It's not, I won't say it's not too expensive, but you can make it work with your budget. Some attorneys will work with your budget to, let you cross all of these things off your checklist. Again, like trust. Trust can come when you have $100,000 in your financial assets, but the things like wills, you can get that started as soon as you feel like your assets have grown enough. Really, just be young as possible. Once you get assets, there's really a point of having assets. You want to make sure you just control those, right? Because again, prevent it from the state touching it, prevent it from maybe people you don't want wanting it, getting it. And it's just important. The checklist is important. Being an adult. Adulting. Yeah. The checklist is massive, and every day gets longer and longer, and this world changes every day, and these checklists become more important every day because of those changes, and you just can't predict what happens. So the checklist is very important, and everyone should start the checklist soon. It's just a good idea because you don't want to be caught off guard. There's several celebrities that were caught off guard because they didn't have a will, and now some people may have gotten what they didn't deserve or supposed to get. Prince is the one to name. Did not have a will when he passed away. So it's just important. Even people with millions of dollars not having wills is very interesting to think about because they have $1 million. It was again, attorney wasn't an issue. Right. They just didn't do it. Right. So you just want to make sure that if you have the will and the volition to get an attorney, you should do it as soon as possible. Right. And just make sure you got kids. Make sure everything's fine. Right. And they're solidified, and it's all about the future. Take care of the future. Exactly. So this checklist is for the future, honestly.
Got you. And it seems like these days now is like we living to take care of when we leave.
Right.
Goodness. You have given us some information on wills as well as trust. And that was the purpose of today's session, educating you all, knowing the difference and the importance of the two. So speak with your financial advisor, speak with your attorneys. He already told you he can get the job done. We would definitely include his information if you want to reach out and have any questions on getting that process started for the wills, so you can minimize any chaos or confusion when you leave, especially if you have children. That's vitally important, as he said several times in today's session. So thank you very much for tuning in to Tarika Say It Again. And please like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, and follow us on Instagram, Addictive Patterns. Check us out on the website, addictivepatterns.all right. Have a good one.
Take care.